This is the Grow Podcast, and I'm Wendy Jo, and this is Ashley.
Hey, Wendy, how are you today?
Doing great. It's been a really lovely day here, and I love it that we're doing this two-part series on stones. We're going to be talking about stones again today. I noticed on your social media that you're doing the stone wrapping as one of the services you're offering now. Is that true?
I've been piloting this idea of doing stone wrapping workshops where basically we bring together a group of women who are seeking some sort of self-empowerment. It really is through the lens of wellness. Everything I do is, but we come together, we get the copper wire. I do affirmations and assign them to the stone based on the personality that I give the stone. And they meditate on it, they journal on it. I bring herbs to where they can infuse the herbs with the stone and like use their scent, use their sense of touch, the whole nine. And it's a really, really beautiful experience that I can't put into words.
It sounds really immersive, you know. I didn't realize that it was all of that wrapped in together, wrapped in. Right? I love it. So they're getting an experience where they're kind of meditating and feeling the stone kind of in their being.
Yeah, for sure. And I let them not let them, but they take the herbs home in a little baggie so they can keep their stone in there and they can just charge it themselves.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So are they, did you say you're choosing the stone and the herb for them, or they're making that choice?
So I choose the stones according to the intention of the event, and then I let them intuitively pick their own stone.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. And, you know, I think, as we said in the previous episode, when people are wrapping their stone and, you know, they just feel like it's theirs, like they're more connected to it. And then they can keep it with them, wear it, or keep it in their pocket. But
Yeah.
keep better track of it because it's kind of wrapped and on some sort of a string or necklace. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, look, I have mine with me
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. Love it.
Yeah, and they feel really connected by the time they're finished spending all this time with it. Sometimes they struggle with it. Sometimes they're like, it was just easy and they figured it out and they just love the affirmation. It evokes maybe an emotion. So it does become an experience for sure.
That's really cool. Well, I'm coming up next. I'm going to be chatting with Chandra Batra. She is a Reiki practitioner like yourself, but really well versed in the stones. So we're going to talk a little more in depth about some particular stones.
I'm excited to hear it.
Hey there, Wendy Jo with the Grow Podcast. So we're talking about stones and crystals again this week, and I have my selenite wand with me today. I love selenite, and selenite wands are great for clearing. So they definitely are a good thing to keep in your office, on your desk, in your living space to kind of collect negative energy. You can also cleanse your aura with them and just clear yourself of negative energy. I like to do that at the end of the day, just go over the top of my head with the selenite wand, down my arms, in a sweeping motion down the body, and clear off any negative energy or just energy I've collected from the day. And of course, then you want to cleanse your selenite wand now and then. And good methods for selenite would be to smudge it with a sage stick, for instance, or sit it in some dry sea salt overnight. Enjoy your selenite. Joining me now is Chandra Batra. She is a Reiki healer and teacher and uses crystals in her personal life and practice. Welcome to the Grow Podcast.
Welcome.
So nice to see you and hear you today. It's been a while.
I know.
So it looks like it's a lovely day in Massachusetts.
Yeah, no, it's the very last. It's probably the beginning of the end of this beautiful late summer that we've had. So.
Nice, nice. So we're talking about crystals today, and I know that you've used crystals quite a bit. So tell us first a little bit about yourself as a healer and how you came to healing work.
I originally came to doing all of this healing work through when I was about 8 years old. I was born with fibromyalgia. I was born with bone issues, which they later realized were fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed at the age of 19. And
Mhm.
if most people, it takes 10 years to get a full diagnosis of fibro. So, which means that I was 9 years old when I probably ended up being considered a formal pain patient. But I was born not breathing with incredibly soft bone.
Wow. And so you were seeking out some healing for yourself?
Yeah, I was seeking out healing for myself and my mom because she had had a lifelong struggle with asthma, with ended up with her dying when I was only 12. It meant that my mom was willing to go seek out alternative healers,
Wow.
being an alternative healer, that she was willing to go look for answers elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And so at that young age, were you drawn to crystals?
Yeah, I was drawn to crystals. My mom had friends who were part of the original New Age, like magical movement in New York. And one of my very favorite things to do when I went to my mom's friend's magical child bookstore was to go there and to play with all the stones at once, and was to throw things on the ground, throw all the stones on the floor and start picking up things that I felt energy from.
Oh, okay. A nice
Yeah,
little game
yeah,
and a kind of awakening the healer in you.
yeah.
Hmm. So tell me a little bit about how you use stones in Reiki, because you are a
I
Reiki master and teacher,
yeah.
and you had mentioned that you use the crystals in your healing practice.
I use crystals by doing grid work, which means laying the crystals down onto a table or a cloth and picking out things that speak to me about the client. But I also will use crystals directly on a person if I know them well enough.
Oh, okay. And how do you select what crystals to use? Is it based on what you feel energetically, or how are you making that decision?
It's mainly energetic. I'll feel heat, or I'll feel more heat when I'm picking up a stone that someone needs. But if
Mhm.
someone comes to me with their own crystals and want them directly laid on them, I'll do that as well.
Oh, I see. Okay. And you mentioned a grid. So for our listeners and viewers, what is a grid and how do you use that in the healing work?
Crystal grids can be formed by making shapes like hexagons and stars. And I like doing the cross grid pattern, which is one stone in the middle and then one stone at each point around the crystal. But they're even more complex and beautiful crystal grids that crystallology people are taught. And they can be up to 12 to about 30 crystals.
Oh, wow. That seems like a lot of energy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people are
Wow.
calling down a lot of energy at one time for that work.
Hmm. So let's talk a little bit about the crystals themselves. Let's talk about some of your favorites. Do you have favorites?
I think my three favorite, all the crystals are beautiful. I have to say that, like, there are times in which I can go into a store and pay some serious cash for some beautiful rare finds. But
Uh-huh.
my three favorite right now are citrine, rose quartz, and pure quartz. I
Okay.
like to keep it simple when I'm working with new people and when I'm working with larger groups as well, because you're trying to find crystals that will resonate with everyone in the room.
Mm, right. So let's talk about them individually a little bit. So citrine is kind of a golden orangey yellow color, right?
Yeah,
And what
and
are
it's
some of the properties of citrine?
citrine is a manifestation and wealth stone at
Mm,
its heart. It's also about processing a large amount of stuckness at one time, usually around financial issues. People in this culture are so tied up into being celebrity, into being rich. They sometimes forget their own riches, their own richness in their own lives. So it becomes a way to seek wealth through seeking gratitude of what you have with that
Mm,
stone.
I love that. And you're absolutely right. I think sometimes our society has become so outwardly focused, and
Yeah.
we love the extroverts, right? That are out there, but really abundance isn't just, physical wealth. There's so many facets to it, isn't there?
Yeah, wealth has a dimension, has different dimensions, and if you're not satisfying yourself on some dimension of wealth, then you're not gonna get what you need to move forward.
Right. So, one thing I know about citrine is it doesn't collect other energies, right?
No, it's a pure stone in and of itself.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I would think that would lend itself to use for healing work as well because it's not bringing in other energies. Is that part of it with citrine?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I know I like to use it for pendulum sometimes because I know that that's got that pure energy. Um,
I know. I love a
cool.
pendulum. I love a citrine pendulum. It must be beautiful.
Yes. So let's move on to clear quartz crystal because I think a lot of people are attracted to clear quartz, but they might not know why. And so maybe you could speak to that a little bit and then how you use it in healing work.
Clear quartz is a first choice for most people as a beginner stone because of all that pure, intense energy. It works as an amplifier to other stones because it can pick up the energy of those stones and process it. It
Ooh.
also works as a very fast way to move through an emotional blockage or to move through physical blockages as well. And I've used it in Reiki as a way to actually break up energy that might be stuck.
Hmm. Another thing to unstick things. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it that it amplifies other stones because working together, has to only, bring more healing to the person. Seems like. Um,
The only problem with the only problem with quartz crystal is that if you are bipolar or if you have any kind of emotional blockage, which means that speeding up things might cause you harm, I wouldn't suggest using it without a more grounding stone with it, without a hematite or an obsidian or a darker stone with it
mhm.
to help process that amount of energy.
Oh, okay. That's good advice. And probably something that people wouldn't know. Um, Okay, so we talked about citrine, we talked about clear quartz. One of my favorites for sure is rose quartz. So, what are some of the properties of rose quartz?
Rose quartz is a stone of self-love as well as a stone of self-inquiry and honoring your heart. It
Mm,
also Rose quartz helped me move through a lot of the blockages I had around my mom's death. I didn't realize I was holding on to any of that. My mom died when I was 12 years old and it was sudden as well as tragic.
I'm so sorry.
So,
Yeah, you had mentioned
yeah.
that, and I imagine, I lost my mom several years ago, and I just yesterday was really crying about it, and I'm like, gosh, why now? And it's getting close to her yard site or her memorial right date. Um,
Well,
but I also think, don't you think it's sort of a process? It comes in layers, and no matter what the circumstances were, losing your mother is hard. And I think if a stone like rose quartz can help bring you some peace, how beautiful is that?
I know, and the huge thing with me is that I was the oldest of three children. My brothers are 5 and 10 years younger than me, so
Oh,
I think a lot of my not processing my mom's death is that I was suddenly thrust into the role of an adult by the time I was 12
wow,
and had to
yeah.
take care of them. So it's
Mhm.
like I didn't have a chance to actually work through that.
Right. That's interesting you say that because I feel like I was much older, right? But still, I didn't really fully process it at the time because there was so much other things going on. So, I think if stones can help us in these processes, they're tools that are available, we should use them, right? So, do you
I
use
know.
rose quartz in your Reiki work too?
I use rose quartz in my Reiki work, and individually, I've been using the raw form of rose quartz in making water and making crystal water, which is when we put a crystal into a bottle of water. It doesn't matter how long it stays. It could stay for an hour of you just focusing, or it could stay through a moon cycle.
Okay.
But when you make your moon water to your own special specifications, you can add some herbs in there,
Mhm.
whatever you need to make the however you need to make it. Water is an amazing tool for using with crystals, because crystals will absorb and as well as disperse their energy through that water. And working with rose quartz water is a really great way to actually get some of that into your internal body.
Oh, I love that. I always wondered about, I see people doing that, but I didn't really know much about it. So people can do that at home pretty easily if they just have a piece. And do you suggest using the raw versus polished stone for the water?
You're supposed to use the raw instead of the polished, because the polished is often polished nowadays, especially in a lot of the countries that are taking it from deeper in mines. The problem with crystals that are being sold on the new age market is a lot of them are being strip mined and taken unethically. So it brings up
Right.
some interesting questions around the ethics of what are how are we as healers destroying the earth, and what are we doing to native, and what are we doing to indigenous people too.
Hmm. That's very important because, as you know, you can find these stones on sites. I won't mention the names of very popular websites where people buy and consume frequently. And I always
Yeah,
wonder,
eBay.
what is what is the difference between those and what you get at your local little, spiritual shop, right? Uh,
Unfortunately not much right now, and that's
oh,
the problem. I mean, if a store you should definitely, if you have a chance to go to a store, ask them where they get their crystals. Ask them if this is ethically sourced.
okay.
And if they look at you and say, "Yo, dude, I just bought this on a website to put in my store," then you might not want to buy your crystals from that person. You might want to find someone who is knowledgeable and will tell you exactly where their stones.
Well, that's really excellent advice, and I'm glad that we talked about that. It's actually something I really hadn't thought about very much. I have a local shop when I'm in Massachusetts that I feel like they're very ethically minded, and there is one here in Fayetteville as well. So I think people just have to really ask those questions. Don't be afraid to ask. Where do you purchase your stones from? Right?
Yeah, pretty much. Don't buy your stones from weird hippie kids who just have a fly by night store, because they're mainly taking those out of bulk order from the bulk Chinese sites, and the Chinese haven't cared if they're strip mining for stones for a very long time, and it's actually doing damage to the indigenous populations who live around those sites.
Gosh. Yeah, I just think the stones themselves, that energy is heavy, heavy. um, so, do you have any suggestions or rituals that you do for cleansing stones when you use them for yourself or in healing?
I think my two favorite, and I learned these both when I was incredibly young, when I was about 8 years old, was to put stones into either a bottle or somewhere or some form of clear glass, and fill the bottle with water and leave it overnight in a full moon. That's one
Okay.
of my favorite. My other favorite, if you need your stone now and you didn't buy anything until the morning of your interview, just take a handful of salt. If your stone is submersible in water, some stones aren't. If your
Okay.
stone is able to withstand water, just take some salt water in your hands and wash that stone. The other thing that you can do with a stone that is not water soluble is you can take a piece of selenite and pass it over it a couple of times.
Okay. That's great. How do you know if your stone is soluble? You look it up, or do you have
Yeah, you can
examples?
You can look it up. Things like the crystal, things that are quartz based, like rose quartz, smoky quartz, all the quartz based things are water soluble. What you'll find trouble in is something that's not a quartz, that is not a pure quartz formation. So
Okay.
anything that you touch on the surface and you come off with chalk on your hands, like a calcite, then that's not then that's not a stone you should submerge.
Okay. All right. Well, wow. I learned so much today. Thank you so much, Chandra. So, if people want to get in touch with you for some healing work, Reiki, stones, they have questions, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm actually accepting new clients right now. My email is my name. It's ChandraBatra@gmail.com.
Excellent. Really easy to remember. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Hey there, Wendy Jo, co host of the Grow podcast. Also, Wendy Edge, occupational therapist. And I wanted to tell you about my new business where I'm combining the principles of occupational therapy, coaching, and spirituality and wellness, of course. On the website, you'll see that I'm doing Osho Zen card readings, spiritual coaching, spirit paintings, and so much more. So if you want, check it out, edgecoachingandconsulting.com.
Have you heard of the Cannabis Nursing School? It's a place where cannabis nursing, entrepreneurship, and spirituality meet. The Highline Tribe is waiting for you, and it's so easy to find. CannabisNursingSchool.com.
Well, what a great show. This has been part 2 in our series about crystals and stones. There's just so much to cover. We'll probably talk about them again in another episode. But it was really cool in this one. We got 2 different perspectives from different healers, how they're using crystals and stones in their practice. And I really love what Ashley's doing with the groups of people wrapping the stones and incorporating herbs and other spiritual tools into it. That's fantastic. And really great to hear from Chandra and how she's using grids and crystals with her patients to help them to heal. I actually learned quite a bit from Chandra, even though I've been using crystals and stones in my own spiritual practice for such a long time. There's always more to learn. Um, well, thanks for joining us, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.